Yusuke is lonely otaku who gets transported to a fantasy world as a lowly farmer. However, when he finds out he's able to respawn every time he dies, he uses it to level up and become the strongest, so he can impress some baddies and crack them. During school hours, Yusuke always feels depressed because he has no friends or hoes like most of you, and the only thing that brings him joy is playing video games. One night, Yusuke finally clears the beginner stage of Minecraft, which makes him happy, but he starts feeling lonely afterwards, so he doom scrolls on Instagram. He then finds some modeling photos of a blonde girl in his class named Shindo and starts blushing as he realizes that she's hotter than Sydney Sweeney. The next day, Yusuke is wiping the board, thinking about how he has no chance of cracking an S-tier baddie like Shindo, and he notices that she's talking to a nerdy girl named Kyusu, which shocks him because he wonders what a model is doing with a geek. However, the girls suddenly stare at him intensely, so he turns to continue his board duty even though he's confused by the girls' strange behavior. After class, the teacher advises Yusuke to make some friends and take his future seriously so that he wouldn't end up being an unemployed bozo like you. However, Yusuke notices that Shindo and Kyusu are still in class, staring at him like he's a juicy steak they plan on devouring. And even though he's baffled, he ignores them because he just wants to get home to play video games again. After the teacher leaves, Yusuke notices that the two girls have shockingly vanished from the class, and some weird drawings start appearing on the board. Suddenly, the room transforms into an astral dimension, and he's instantly transported into another world, where he falls into a river. As he starts to wonder what's going on, he sees that he's surrounded by several terrifying Resident Evil monsters, causing him to freak out. However, Shindo suddenly arrives with Kyusu and warns him not to freak out because a half-faced weirdo is about to appear. Suddenly, they appear in a strange dimension where a low-quality Dr. Manhattan called the Game Master appears, causing Yusuke to lose his mind despite the warning. The Game Master ignores this and simply gives him a quest, which is to fulfill the village chief's request within the 14-day time limit. Yusuke doesn't understand why no one else is freaking out, but Shindo kicks his cakes to shut up and listen. The Game Master then informs them that there are 8 remaining steps before the mission is complete, and a new member will join their party after every step until the final step, which must be completed with 10 members. Even though Yusuke is confused, the headless god proceeds to introduce Shindo as a wind mage and Kyusu as a warrior, but when he rolls the board to pick an occupation for Shindo, the bum ends up with a farmer position, which frustrates the girls because the only thing he has to offer is his tool. After the game master leaves, Shindo explains to Yusuke that she was the first one to get Isekai'd, and after managing to complete the first quest, she returned to the normal world and followed the game master's instructions to befriend Kyusu, which led to her being Isekai'd as well. She then reveals that the game master instructed them to be alone with Yusuke, and it was after they fulfilled that mission that he joined them in the game world. Soon after, Shindo teaches Yusuke how to summon weapons, but he realizes that he only has trashy farming tools in his inventory. As they explore the forest, a goblin suddenly appears, so Yusuke summons a sickle and rushes in to attack it, thinking he's Jinwoo, but the goblin easily knocks his weapon away, causing the girls to conclude that even his tool is useless. However, when he asks Shindo for help, she casts a wind spell which only blows a light breeze, and explains that it's all she's capable of since she's at level 1. Since she's even more worthless than he is, Yusuke turns to Kyusu for help, but he sees her shaking like a leaf, and when the goblin attacks, the airhead tosses her sword at it. Since his partners are a pair of Sakuras, Yusuke decides to destroy the monsters himself, but his hand passes right through the sword, and Shindo explains that the weapons can only be picked up by the original wielder. However, Yusuke summons a hoe, figuring it must be more useful than the two standing beside him. He charges in confidently at the goblins, but they shatter his weapon and hit a home run with his ugly face. Minutes later, Yusuke wakes up, and he's confused by how he suddenly respawned. So Shindo explains that they returned to life 30 seconds after being unalived in the game world. He then asks Shindo for help, so she casts a wind spell which covers the goblin's field of vision with dust, allowing Yusuke to stab it while getting bonked in the head as well. After Yusuke revives, Shindo drops the ultimate bombshell, informing him that they'd die in the real world if all 3 of them die at once in the game world. Later that evening, Yusuke successfully slays a group of goblins, but suddenly, he hears Shindo calling him for help. When he returns to camp, he sees that a giant monster has given Kyusu the Gojo treatment and is feasting on Shindo like a pork rib. He remembers that they'd die if they're all unalived, so he runs away with Kyusu's top half to give her time to revive. The next morning, most of Kyusu has respawned, but he notices that her hand isn't regenerating, so Kyusu explains that it's because it was eaten. This makes him realize that Shindo also can't be revived, so he decides that he and Kyusu will complete the mission alone. A few hours later, they arrive at a village where everyone glazes them as heroes, and they soon meet the village chief to learn of their task. However, when the chief shows them the picture of the troll they need to defeat, Yusuke concludes that they're going to die because it's the same monstrosity from the forest. Seeing that Kyusu has the battle skills of a wet sock, Yusuke asks her to stay behind at the village while he goes on a side quest to raise his rank. However, while walking away, Yusuke has flashbacks of himself brutally destroying his ops in video games, and he realizes that this deadly world is a million times more exciting than Tokyo. Hours later, Yusuke is searching the forest for some goblins, and when he remembers how the monster destroyed Shindo, he realizes that he needs to raise his rank before facing it again so that he wouldn't end up just feeding it. As he walks through the forest, he finds a log point, and when he makes contact with it, he sees a memory of Kyusu and Shindo having girl talk, but Kyusu said she hates all guys because they're all immature degenerates. However, just as Shido is about to say who she likes, the idiot sneezes and misses it. Some minutes later, he stares at the town from the forest, and he starts having flashbacks of some similar moments in the real world until the goblins arrive. As Yusuke destroys the goblins, he remembers how everyone mocked him on the first day of school, which makes him so angry that he accidentally lets a goblin escape while piercing one in the throat. He then checks his stats bar and sees that he's now at rank 9, and he feels frustrated because he knows he'd have been level 10 if he hadn't let one escape. Yusuke wonders if there's a way to change jobs because he doesn't want to be stuck as a farmer forever, and he concludes that there has to be a way since there were many jobs on the Game Master's board. As he starts daydreaming of being a warrior like Kratos, he gets a notification that Kyusu has died, so he rushes to check on the village and sees that it's on fire. When he remembers that the Game Master's original quest is for them to fulfill the village chief's request, he wonders if they failed the quest, and he rushes down to the village to help. On arriving there, he notices that Kyusu isn't reviving as she's probably been eaten, and he realizes that if he dies, they'll all be gone for real. As he searches for the villagers, he finds a log point and immediately accesses it, hoping to find something helpful. He sees a clip where a boy asks Kyusu why she keeps doing practice swings, and she replies that in her world, she can't do any strenuous exercises because of her illness, and that was the first time she was swinging around something that heavy. She admitted that all she did was slow down Shindo and Yusuke and burst into tears while saying that she's been a burden to many people ever since the day she was born, which is why she decided to help everyone while she's healthy. After wiping off her tears, she assured the boy that she would work hard and keep everyone safe if anything happened. As Yusuke watches the clip of her desperately trying to help the villagers, he realizes that he's only ever been thinking of himself. The monster eventually knocked Kyusu to a corner and tried to attack a boy, but Kyusu jumped back in to steal its attention and summoned her shield, only to get knocked through a wall. While she was on the ground, the monster grabbed her, and as she begged for Yusuke to save her, it feasted on her like a chicken nugget. After watching this, Yusuke sees that the monster has appeared, so he pulls the Joestar secret technique to save himself, but the beast catches up to him and smacks him into the air. While in the air, Yusuke remembers when he and his friends agreed that they'd meet back at a giant tree after graduating from high school and dig up a time capsule together. He then remembers Kyusu talking about her post-graduation plans, and as he lands in the river, he runs ahead while deciding that he'd never let her die because of some stupid parallel world. As the monster charges at him, he dodges its attacks and notices that it can only jump like a frog, so he keeps changing direction to evade the beast. Suddenly, he notices that the beast is right above him, and he sees a goblin ahead, so he quickly stabs the goblin, causing his level to rise to rank 10. The entire area suddenly freezes, and the Game Master appears to inform him that he's reached a new level. The Game Master then spins the job wheel again, and Yusuke prays to become something useful, but this time, he ends up with the chef position, which frustrates him. However, while scanning through his new weapons inventory, he finds a blade, so he instantly equips it and notices that he now has Superman's X-ray vision as one of his skills. After the Game Master leaves, Yusuke slashes right through the stomach of the monster, and the undigested remains of the girls spill out, allowing them to revive. They notice that the monster is weakened due to blood loss, so they start attacking it with combos. However, the beast destroys them over and over again, so Yusuke comes up with an idea where he'd land an attack inside the monster's body using Shindo's help. As he charges at the beast, it tries to grab him, but he dodges and jumps right into its stomach, where he slashes it before getting bodied again. Following Yusuke's instructions, Shindo climbs on top of the monster and pumps air directly into its head, causing it to explode. Afterwards, the Game Master appears once again and congratulates them for clearing their quest before asking Yusuke what he wants as a reward. While brainstorming, Yusuke realizes that the Game Master is from the future, so he asks what they do after completing the 10th step. The Game Master plays a clip where the three of them are facing a huge dragon in the real world, and the power trio suddenly awaken in the normal world. As Yusuke walks back home, he realizes that the city will be destroyed by a dragon if he abandons the quest. Sometime later, Yusuke is doing a practice run through town, and he remembers the vision that the Game Master showed him, which makes him wonder why he's the one who would be tasked with saving the city that he hates. Suddenly, he gets a phone call from Game Master, who sends him on a special mission to rizz up a girl whom he specified. Shortly after, Yusuke arrives at the destination, and as he hides from the security guards, Game Master explains that his success or failure there will influence his chances in the next quest. Yusuke complains that he can't just stroll in since school is enemy territory for him, but the Game Master tells him to go upstairs. As he arrives on the second floor, he sees that the light in the ladies' room is still on, so he walks in and sees some girls forcefully trying to make OnlyFans videos of a girl in glasses. When he asks the game master for instructions, he tells him that their target is the baddie in glasses, so he ends the call and tries to talk to the girls, but realizes that he has zero experience with talking to girls. The leader of the bullies reminds him that he shouldn't be in the girls' bathroom and starts recording him, so he hides his face to prevent himself from being labeled as the next ditty. However, he realizes the girl in glasses could end up unaliving herself if they successfully leak sus videos of her, and this would ruin his chances of rizzing her up, meaning that he'd end up failing the next quest and dying. With this in mind, he grabs the phone from the bully's hand and shatters it, and feels confident that he'll have a better chance of rizzing up the glasses girl. As the bully cries, he realizes that the other girls may have also made videos on their phones, so he destroys the phones of the other two girls and starts celebrating the fact that he's finally about to land a girlfriend for the first time. One of the girls tries to kick him, but he blocks with a karate chop and announces that he's much stronger than they are, causing the bullies to run away. Afterwards, Isekai'd walks the four-eyed girl, Yuka, home, and she wishes the creep would just leave her and go home. But bro is in Delulu land, imagining all the different Johnny Sins moves she let him try on her. When he asks why they were bullying her, she explains that they were getting back at her because the girl who was recording is actually her streaming partner, who got offended after Yuna slandered her on livestream. Yuka admits that she was wrong, but suddenly starts crying her eyes out while saying that she didn't name drop her. And Isekai'd rattles his non-existent brain to find a way to calm her down since he's never been in that situation before. Since the game master isn't calling back, he wonders if he's completed the mission, but Yuka tells him that she can go the rest of the way by herself. After waving each other goodbye, Yuka brings up a popular game named Wansta, which is about training up male idols, and explains that the protagonist is a female producer who grows closer to each of the guys she works for. She then blushes while saying that if Isekai'd tries to do something one of the guys in the game would do, it might work out as modeling practice for him. As she runs away, Isekai'd realizes that she's the worst type of otaku. A while later, Isekai'd is playing the game, feeling depressed because he's wasted 2 weeks of his life, and he suddenly gets transported to the game world where he meets Shindo and Kyusu. However, Yuka suddenly appears as the fourth player, and as she tries to figure out what's going on, the game master suddenly appears, causing her to freak out. He spins the wheel, and Yuka ends up bagging the position of a heat wizard, causing her clothes to transform into a Temu Harry Potter gear. The game master then reveals that in this next stage, the revival period will increase from 30 seconds to 40 seconds and shows them their quest before vanishing. As Isekai'd approaches Yuka, she accuses him of kidnapping her, but the girls tell her to calm down so they can explain everything to her. After Yuka tells them about how she met Isekai'd, they end up seeing him as a filthy degenerate as well, so they move forward with Yuka, leaving him behind. As Shindo explains how things work to Yuka, the four-eyed wizard admires her and sees her as a purple version of Madoka. When Shindo asks why she talked to the three girls who were trying to film her, she explains that she tried to make up with them after offending them, and Isekai'd served as a mutual enemy for them to bond over. Hearing this, Shindo explains that she's always trying to stop bullying because she plans to live her best student life, and this makes Yuka admire her even more, but see herself as a pitiful loser. Afterwards, they walk to a part of the forest where a giant centipede suddenly appears and destroys Isekai'd with a bug attack. Using his chef's skill, he identifies the creature as Demon Bug Kadumlet, and after it destroys Shindo, Yuka steps up to face the bugs using everything she's learned from Magical Girl anime. However, her spell only increases the temperature of her wand, and she gets bodied immediately. After respawning, Isekai'd starts destroying the smaller bugs with his kitchen blades, causing the girls to admire him, and when the larger centipede monster attacks, he rips off several of its limbs. Afterwards, he joins Kyusu in holding her sword, and they deliver a brutal slash which destroys the monster once and for all. Back when Shindo was still a midget, she was known as a delinquent, but all that changed when she met Sayuri. She loved her more than anyone, but one day, Sayuri jumped from her building and died. Apparently, she had no one that she could talk to about being bullied. When Shindo started school, all of the teachers started picking on her because of all the things her two delinquent brothers used to do to them, but her friends always defended her and hung out with her. Isekai'd is completely speechless after hearing all this, but she continues her story by bringing up how she was randomly isekai'd and she felt sad because everything she had, especially her friends, had been taken from her. She claims that she doesn't want to die in that garbage world no matter what, and grabs Isekai'd's hand while begging him to help her conquer the game world. The next morning, the squad heads back to the village they previously saved and notice that it's completely fallen into ruin. Suddenly, a villager arrives and explains that the village has always been deserted in the 5 years that he's been stopping by, and this makes Isekai'd realize that time moves faster in that world than in the normal world. Kyusu is stunned as she realizes that the boy she befriended is probably alive somewhere, and Shindo asks what they should do next since they plan to gather information from that village. Isekai'd then asks the man if he knows where Radadorbo is, and the man reveals that Radadorbo is at the edge of the continent. Shindo then begs begs the man to let them borrow his horse since they're heroes, but he explains that he can't spare his horses and informs them that there is a martial arts tournament coming up in the nearby town of Cordonel, where the winners will be rewarded with 3 horses. After he leaves, Yusuke announces that winning the tournament is the first goal in the quest, and since they still have a little bit of time before it starts, he suggests that they all level up in some way. As they walk through the forest, Shindo assures Yuka that they'll be fine since they're only there to destroy goblins, and when Yuka asks what they'll do if a stronger monster appears, she says they'll run away. Suddenly, some bandits jump out of the bushes and attack, but Yusuke sidesteps one of them and slashes him in the arm. Yusuke then starts frame-logging in celebration, but Game Master ruins his vibes by announcing that he's gone down a rank for slaying humans. While backing away, he informs Shindo that his experience points have been dropped because harming humans in that world counts as excessive self-defense, and he orders the gang to run away. As the others run ahead, Shindo casts a wind spell to push back the enemy, and after finding a safe spot, the others notice that she's been captured. Yusuke then asks if they need to save her, and this confuses everyone, so he brings up the fact that the safety of each one of them individually is irrelevant to the success of the quest since one of them can clear it. Kyusu tries to argue, but he reminds her that their lives are on the line as well, and suggests that they do what gives them a greater chance of success. However, Yuka asks him how he could abandon her after she begged him to save her the previous night, so he explains that he plans to save her by clearing the quest, and makes it clear that he's willing to do it even if his own life will be at risk. Kyusu argues that they still have to save her, so Yusuke decides to put them in charge of that since he has a negative experience with things like that. Hearing this, Yuka sidebars Kyusu and tells her that they're the only 2 decent people around since Yusuke is useless, but Yusuke interrupts their private meeting to suggest that they split into groups. They agree that Yusuke will enter the martial arts tournament, while the ladies head out to save Shindo, and after the girls leave, Yusuke realizes that he's all alone once again. As the girls walk through the forest, Yuka tells Kyusu not to worry about Yusuke since they can save her on their own. However, the bandits capture them in seconds, and Yusuke sees this through the party status screen, which makes him depressed. After he defeats an army of goblins, the Game Master spins the wheel, and Yusuke becomes a magician who can manipulate monsters, but his stats go down. When he arrives at the tournament grounds, he's put up against a knight named Kaval as a first opponent, so he changes in with a kitchen knife and ends up getting packed up in seconds. After he revives, Yusuke begs Kaval to lend her horses, but she asks him to help them handle the bandit situation instead, and she takes him to her boss, who agrees to lend one of his horses in exchange for his services. Afterwards, Kaval trains Yusuke with wooden swords, and after he flops several rounds, he remembers that he's always been trash at physical activities. Later that night, the bandits patrol the forest, but Kaval and her knights take them out in charge at their base. A war breaks out between the knights and the bandits realize that they're cooked, so they unleash a huge dude called Berserker, which is basically a Temu version of the Attack Titan. As he attacks the knights, Kaval charges in with her sacred sword and clashes with him while yapping about her weird obsessions. Suddenly, Berserker knocks off her blade, so Yusuke steps in and distracts it with monster magic, allowing Kaval to slice off its head. Afterwards, he frees the girls from their cages, and Kaval offers to lend them her carriage until they arrive at Rado Dorbo. Ever since her middle school days, Kyusu has always hated sports class. Even though she had a legitimate reason why her doctor warned her not to participate, her grade was always 1 because of the status she was born with. This is why she decided to find her identity in the pharmaceutical field by inventing a drug that would cure the disease that she and her mom have. When she told her parents about these dreams, her mom pointed out that it's a 6-year course, and her dad said they can't afford to pay for a private school. However, Kyusu promised that she'd study hard to get a scholarship, so both parents said some Oprah Winfrey quotes to motivate her. After she was rescued from the bandits' prison, Kyusu went outside with the other ladies and saw the knights burying all the bandit corpses, and that's when it hit her that the violence that had always been meaningless to her had now become the most vital skill she needed to stay alive. As the guards started gathering the weapons and accessories of the bandits, Kyusu watched in silence, feeling like she'd forgotten her identity because her life could no longer be peaceful. Back in the present, everyone is riding on the carriage, and Kaval suggests setting up camp nearby so that the horses can rest, and everyone agrees. After setting up camp, they have a meal together, and Kaval's comrades really enjoy the meal, but Kyusu can't bring herself to eat because she's still traumatized by the brutal sight of the bandits getting destroyed. Shindo comforts her by saying it's no big deal that she doesn't have an appetite since they don't get hungry in that world anyway, but Kyusu tells her that she wants to protect everyone, including her friends and the people of that world. However, she doesn't know if she can handle it anymore because she can't even protect herself, and all she does is cause trouble for others. As Yusuke continues cooking, one of the guards, named John, comes by and says he feels bad for making the hero do the cooking, but Yusuke tells him not to worry about it because cooking is his thing. He then starts bragging about how his level 10 cooking skills make him better than Gordon Ramsay, but this only makes Kyusu sad as she realizes that only those with physical strength gain levels and access to everything. However, Kaval interrupts by asking to begin their sword training, and Yuka asks about their previous training sessions, so he reveals that he only beat her twice out of 100 matches, where she handicapped herself. Hearing this, Yuka Yuka gets creeped out, and she remembers the moment after they were rescued, when Kaval announced that she wanted all of them to let her train them with a sword, and started geeking out about how much she wanted to slice them up like Domino's pizza. Back then, Yusuke agreed because they didn't have any other options, and Kaval immediately started jumping in excitement, as if the new Steel Ball Run episode had dropped. After remembering this, Yuka has a bad feeling because of how excited Kaval was, but Kaval suddenly picks her to be the first trainee and informs her that she'll be attacking after 5 seconds. While charging at her, the Psycho Knight boasts about how she loves cleaving flesh out of living things, and this gives Yusuke the ick, as he wonders how a pretty baddie can be such a freak. After several rounds of brutal training, Yuka starts walking around like she's just received 1,000 backshots from several black dudes, and after she tells the girls about the horrible experience, they start wetting themselves. Suddenly, the guards show up to tell Kaval that they were attacked by goblins while gathering firewood, and John was injured, and Kaval yells at John for getting slimed out by such a low-level creature. Later that evening, Yusuke heals John's injuries using magic, and explains to everyone that he's accelerating his cellular metabolism to make his sound heal faster. But Yuka complains that it's unfair that he can gain experience without fighting, so he tells her to take up her problems with the system. The next morning, Kyusoo resumes her training with Kaval, and this time, she puts up a better fight because she's determined to gain experience points and get much stronger so she can protect everyone. Kaval admits that she's moving better this time, but when Kyusoo struggles to carry her sword, Kaval immediately knocks her out. A while later, a guard informs the team that he's found a horde of goblins, and the carriage driver asks if they should take a detour, but Kaval says it would be faster to wipe them out themselves. However, Yusuke offers to handle it with his team instead, and they all start destroying the goblins, aside from Kyusoo, who gets cornered by a goblin. Kaval rushes in to help, but she stops when she sees the determination in Kyusoo's eyes, and as the goblin charges forward, Kyusoo stabs it right through the gut. Since it's her first ever body, she starts apologizing over and over again with tears in her eyes. Later that night, Shindo congratulates Kyusoo for finally destroying a goblin, but she's still traumatized by the feeling of being a murderer. As Kyusoo stares at her hands, she remembers how she was trembling after destroying the goblins, and she decides that she'll cut flesh too to save everyone. The next morning, the carriage's tire gets stuck in a crack in the ground, and all the guys combine their efforts to bring it out. Soon after, they arrive at a spot where they see some men getting attacked by some monsters, and Kyusoo suggests helping them, but the fraud hero argues that it isn't safe, so she tells them that she's going herself because she can't ignore people in trouble. Yusuke realizes that it could be an event set up by the game master, so he decides that they should split into 2 groups, and he accompanies Kyusoo to save the people while the others move ahead. As they charge towards the wolf monsters, the wolves start running towards them, so they summon their weapons to face them. The wolf monsters start overpowering them, and Yusuke tries to use his monster spell, but it doesn't work, so he stabs a wolf in the eye instead. As he moves in to finish it off, another wolf bites him from behind, and the men destroy the wolf. After Kyusoo revives, she locks in and summons a sword, which she uses to stab right through the mutt's brace. Yusuke is shocked by her character development, and after he revives, he leads the last wolf to the carriage, where Kaval destroys it with a flame-breathing slash. Afterwards, Yusuke heals the injured men, and they thank him before revealing that they were transporting some criminals to Radadorbo with the intention of executing them. Hearing this, everyone realizes that this is connected to the mission the game master sent them, and Yusuke is confused about whether to help the prisoners or not. Kaval says she doesn't believe the far western town of Radadorbo falls under the Kingdom of Diok's authority, and asks the soldiers if they intend to execute their own men on foreign land. This angers the soldier commander, so he asks her who she is, and she introduces herself as a knight of the city-state Courtenay, and claims that she's not obliged to submit to his questioning since he's merely a foot soldier. Hearing this, the soldier calls Courtenay a tiny nation with no value but a significant training route, and introduces himself as Vice Corporal Camilto of the Kingdom of Diok. Kaval gets triggered and asks the mustache moron how he has the nerve to talk smack to her after his highest officers got packed up by mere kobolds, and they have an intense stare down. However, just as they're about to start throwing hands, Shindo stops them. So Kaval explains that they need to carve up the 3 soldiers immediately because the Kingdom of Diok is a dictatorship that seems to be consolidating power over the entire continent. Camilto claims that he won't allow anyone to slander the Kingdom of Diok that way, and anyone who stands in his way will be cut down. Seeing that she can't control these angry birds, she calls Yusuke for help, and he announces that all the heroes should meet him immediately. After they gather, he explains that the whole situation is an event they have to get through to deliver the goods to Radadorbo, and since it's a compulsory quest, the goods they have to deliver are the prisoners. However, he points out that all of the prisoners will be executed if they follow through with the quest, including the young boy he's currently healing, and guesses that their actions could be branded as a human attack, which would end the game for them. He then suggests that it's too risky to slay the soldiers at the moment, and asks the others what to do, and the four-eyed witch finally uses her brain for once by coming up with an idea to lead them as far as Radadorbo, and then stopping the execution to set them free. Shindo asks if they all agree with the plan, and everyone says yes, so they rejoin the others in the carriage. As the carriages move ahead, one of the Diok soldiers asks Camilto if it's safe to let the heroes and a foreign knight accompany them, so Camilto explains that they have no other choice because they can't unalive the prisoners before their execution, and they have no choice but to rely on Yusuke's healing powers. Meanwhile, Yusuke is healing the injured prisoner boy in one of the carriages, and Kyusu asks why the boy hasn't regained consciousness, so he explains that even though the boy is improving little by little, he has to take breaks to refill his magic power since the patient is very young. They soon arrive at a spot where Kamilto decides that they should set up camp for the evening, and Kaval is pissed off that she has to take orders from a Pringles man lookalike, so Shindo reminds her that they're the ones who asked for permission to travel with the Diok soldiers. As Kaval walks away, Shindo realizes that she doesn't trust Kamilto, and Yusuke meets up with him to ask for something. Soon after, the heroes take an old man named Fafsel to the car where the young prisoner is being held, and he introduces himself as a missionary from the continent of Illa. He then reveals that she wished that the boy, Balili, could be spared even if the rest of them are axed, and explains that the kingdom of Diok executes all Arteos believers, even from other countries. When Yusuke asks why the kingdom hates Arteos, he explains that the nation is divided between citizens who worship only the king and citizens who worship both God and the king. Both sides have been engaging in a brutal war, where each side destroyed everything the other believed in, and the destruction of the kingdom's successive leaders' statues was the final straw, leading to the prohibition of the religion and execution of believers. In peaceful times, the god Giasus advocates for love and peace, but some believers failed to understand what the scriptures truly said, and the people of the kingdom were split into two. Hearing this, Yusuke realizes that this event is a compulsory one, and he decides that the next step is to approach Kamilto. When they meet him, Yusuke asks why it was so necessary to carry out such a dangerous journey just to execute Arteos believers in Radadorbo, and he says it's to set an example, because they come from the kingdom of Illa, and since Radadorbo is the gateway to the continent, they have to be halted there. He explains that it's important to dampen their morale as soon as they set foot there to prevent them from growing further, and tells him the story of how the current King Diok V was the one who changed the tragic state of their kingdom with policies that saved Kamilto from homelessness when he was younger. Kamilto claims that his king is a good king who desires a unified continent for the good of the people, and to achieve that, the Arteos religion has to be erased from the continent at any cost. However, the girls aren't still okay with the idea of unaliving people for these ideals, and Yusuke feels that the king of Dak is only using mob mentality by saving the weak people of his nation through colonization of smaller nations. Yuka breaks the silence by saying that she refuses to play by those rules because she believes dictatorships and colonialism are wrong, and Kamilto gets so ticked off that he tries to fight her, but Yusuke stops him and explains that the king's logic isn't wrong. The next morning, Shindo and Kaval are doing sword practice, and Kaval explains that the only way to match a man's strength is by using sword arts to slash the opponent's vital points. Meanwhile, Kamilto informs Yusuke that it'll take 7 days to cross the mountains in front of them, but there's another route which will be faster. However, while following that shortcut, Yusuke and one of the soldiers have to push the carriage from behind, and they soon enter a cave which looks just as majestic as Disneyland. Suddenly, the door behind them shuts, and Kamilto announces that he's ditching the heroes because they can't travel with people who sympathize with the Arteos worshippers. While exploring the labyrinth, they encounter some traps, but Yusuke proves that his virgin brain can fly by shutting down the first batch of traps, allowing the team to travel safely through the first floor. However, he ends up falling victim to another trap and becomes trapped in an empty dark room. After brainstorming for several minutes, the girls figure out the timing of the traps, so they evade the second trap easily. Eventually, they arrive at a large arena, where a terrifying gargoyle suddenly awakens. In the dark room, Yusuke uses his kitchen knife to make cracks on the wall, which he climbs on, but when he looks down, he realizes that he's terrified even though he knows he can return to life. Unfortunately, his fear becomes reality as he slips from one of the cracks and falls to his death. He then tries again, making his way up through cracks while creating new ones, but his torch suddenly goes out, so he decides to do it the Earthbender way by using his ability to feel the rocks instead of seeing them. While climbing up, he remembers the day his teacher introduced him to the rest of his classmates as a new student, and as he stuttered to introduce himself, the dumb students laughed at him. He then slips yet again, and while climbing back up, he remembers a day in class when the teacher told the students to divide into groups of 6 friends each, but everyone avoided Yusuke like he was a 2020 pandemic. After slipping once more, Yusuke unlocks his inner spider monkey and finally manages to climb to the top of the platform, so he celebrates by doing his best Darth Vader impression. Soon after, Yusuke moves forward through the dark dungeon by using his hands to feel around, and he falls down, which makes him complain that the map only gives a top-down view. After getting back up, he goes even deeper into the dungeon and finds a log point, which he then looks into. In the clip, the entire party is in tears as Kava lays to rest her loyal comrade, Binsberg, who served her family for over a decade before getting unalived by Kamilto. She swears that she'll send the 3 soldiers from Diok to join him in the afterlife so he can cut them apart there, and she then breaks down in tears as well. As Yusuke stretches out his arms in the darkness, he feels the corpse of Binsberg and remembers all the fun experiences they had together during their journey, which makes him blame himself for choosing to join Kamilto's gang. Even though Yusuke didn't know him for much longer, he considers him a comrade in arms because they once pushed a carriage together while while talking about their favorite JoJo stands. While walking out of the area, Yusuke thanks Bimsbird for everything, but feels like he's once again just being a stranger to everyone because he doesn't even get to see his friend's corpse. Meanwhile, the gargoyle approaches the girls slowly, but its minions waste no time in attacking them, so Kavel destroys them one after the other, and Shindo knocks them out as well while complaining that the vampire bats are getting on her nerves. As the others struggle with the bats, the Kavel and Shindo charge ahead and meet the gargoyle at the center of the arena. During their standoff, Shindo informs Kavel that the exit key is hanging on the gargoyle's arm, so she charges ahead and tries to slash it off, but the gargoyle blocks. As Shindo fights off some vampire bats, Kavel fends off the gargoyle's attacks and praises her for being more useful than the rest of her team. Shindo explains that she's that good because she's spent the past 2 years role-playing Serena Williams on the school tennis club before stopping recently, but Kavel advises her to keep playing the sport. After remembering the pain she felt when she retired from tennis, Shindo promises Kavel that she'll return to the sport, but suddenly, the gargoyle stabs Kavel through the gut, causing her to fall into the water below. While everyone yells her name in concern, Shido stares in disbelief as she wonders if Kavel is really dead, but the gargoyle suddenly shifts its attention to her. As the gargoyle marches in to finish her off, Shido starts backing up but suddenly steps on a bat. Just then, time suddenly freezes, and she starts to wonder if Dio has invaded their world until she remembers Yusuke explaining to her that when she reaches level 10, time will stop for everyone aside from herself and the master. The game master suddenly appears and congratulates her for reaching a new level, but she starts crashing out over the fact that she could have saved Kavel if this power-up had come a few seconds sooner. As the game master spins the wheel for her new job, Shindo remembers Yusuke advising her to take advantage of the few seconds that time is frozen if she has an opponent in front of her, so she charges in at the monster. When time resumes, Shido's magical gear changes into a dollar store Wonder Woman cosplay, as her new job is warrior, and she attacks the gargoyle with her sword, but its skin is too tough to penetrate. The gargoyle delivers a brutal strike to her arm, causing her to fly to the ground edge of the platform, but she manages to get back up, and after her arm heals, she summons her sword, as well as a shield and her wizard hat. She then notices that the Kavel managed to injure the gargoyle, and she remembers Kavel explaining that the best way to take down a beast is to strike its heart indirectly from either a lower point in its body or a higher one. As the gargoyle approaches her, she charges in and knocks off its arm, but it uses its other arm blade to cut off her right arm. When it tries to finish her off, she blocks with a shield and climbs to the top of the monster, where she grabs her sword again and stabs it through the shoulder. Meanwhile, Yusuke is moving through the dungeon, thinking about how he once protected his friends from a bear, and he wonders why he was born and chosen to be a player. He also starts wondering who Shindo and Kyusu really are since they're so amazing, and he decides that he'll fulfill his role as the leader because he's the strongest among them. When he arrives at the arena, he sees that Shindo has already defeated the gargoyle, but they inform him that Kavel is dying underwater, so he switches to swimming clothes and jumps into the water to save her. Soon after, Kavel wakes up, confused by the fact that her injuries are healed, so John explains that Yusuke drained his magic while healing her until he went unconscious. After John leaves, Kavel sneakily kisses an unconscious Yusuke, but the other girls catch her red-handed. She then explains to the girls that she's just the real reason she's leading the expedition is that she's average compared to the rest of her family and wants to gain more respect. Later that night, Yusuke wakes up and explains to the girls that he's figured out that the goods they're to deliver aren't the prisoners, but Kyusu says she doesn't want to abandon them, so he once again decides that they should split up. When Shindo asks what he means by splitting up, he explains that they should divide into 2 groups and travel separately, with one of the groups following the Diak soldiers to save the prisoners, while the other group looks for different cargo bound for Radadorbo. He adds that they can't be clear on the requirements to complete the quest because they don't know exactly what the goods are, and Kyusu admits that he's right because they'll all suffer if they have the wrong idea. When Shindo asks what teams they'll be splitting into, Yusuke suggests that he and Shindo should be on separate teams so that both teams can have good combat strength. Kavel agrees with this idea, but says she must be part of the ones chasing the men from Diak so that she can avenge Bimsbird. With 7 days and 1 hour left until they reach their destination, the party officially agrees on the separate teams. Shindo is partnered up with John and Kyusu on the mission of searching for cargo bound for Radadorbo, and the team that will follow the Diak soldiers consists of Kavel, Yuka, and Yusuke. As the search team moves ahead, Shindo assures Kyusu that they'll come across a settlement eventually if they keep moving on the main road, and Kyusu claims that they'll be able to achieve their goal if they can offer to escort any deliveries from there to Radadorbo. John agrees with this idea and claims that they might run into a traveling merchant headed for Radadorbo, so Shindo concludes that their mission will be a walk in the park. That evening, the other group is chilling at the campfire, and Yusuke informs his teammates that Team A is making progress, and he announces that they, Team B, have to continue pursuing the route that Diak's wagon is taking. But Yuka hates the fact that she's on this team because she knows it's more dangerous. Kavel points out that murdering them in an ambush will work out because the soldiers have no idea that they escaped the dungeon, but she's concerned because she remembers how they send messages using weird birds. She suspects that it's routine communication with the kingdom, but it's likely a notice that they were going to trap some enemy heroes and soldiers of Cordonel the next day. Yusuke admits that she's right, and she goes even further to say that the kingdom might suspect that their soldiers have been slain if they went missing shortly after trapping Cordonel's soldiers. Since they're a militant nation, she guesses that they'll use it as grounds to start a full-blown war, but she wants to avoid that by all means because the kingdom has 10 times the number of soldiers as her people do, and she doesn't want to see her kingdom get destroyed because of her. Hearing this, Yusuke suggests that the first thing they should do is get them to write a letter saying the Cordonel is not their enemy, and when Yuka asks how they can do this, Yusuke explains that they need to convince them that it's the truth so that they'll report it to the kingdom. Yuka argues that it's impossible, and even though Yusuke knows the letter may not have any effect since the kingdom could still ignore it and start a war, he still wants them to know all the horrible feelings he and the others felt before they die. He then announces that he has a plan and gives a smile as creepy as Pennywise, causing the girls to freak out. After Yusuke tells them the plan, Yuka is impressed that Bro keeps coming up with ruthless ideas, and she presumes that he was maybe meant to become the Aizen Sosuke of that world instead of the hero. Yusuke explains that he's always been good at this sort of thing because, after playing Call of Duty and Splinter Cell, thinking about how to take out enemies has become a regular part of his day. Yuka says she hasn't played anything but social network games for about a year, and she starts fantasizing about her favorite brainrot rom-com hand until she notices that Bro is giving her the stink eye. After remembering the kiss from Cavell, her face turns red like a stop sign, as she asks him if a kiss in that virtual world would count as a first kiss, but Bro thinks she's starting her personal Bonnie Blue adventure, so he asks her if she kissed John. She angrily tells him that she hasn't kissed anyone yet, so he explains that the first kiss should count as an experience, whether it's in the real world or a virtual one, especially in a world as realistic as the one they are in. As he leaves to wake Cavell up, Yuka remembers that during most first kisses in rom-com anime, the main character usually pretends to be asleep, but in this idiot's case, he was truly asleep. Meanwhile, Yusuke suddenly arrives at the Diok soldiers' camp, and they immediately pull their weapons out to face him, but he says he's only there to negotiate and reminds them that fighting won't do them any good because heroes can recover from death every 40 seconds. When Kamilto asks what he wants to negotiate, Bro straight up lies that the only survivors of the dungeon trap are himself and Yuka, and when Yuka arrives, she lies as well, claiming that Yusuke has converted to the religion of Arteros. The Diok soldiers are baffled, but he makes things even worse by threatening to spread Arteros' teachings all over the world, using his immortality as a hero if they don't release the prisoners. Kamilto claims that there's no need to negotiate since he'll still have the ability to do that if they cooperate, but Yusuke gives them till the next afternoon to make their decision. After they leave, Kamilto admits to his men that their efforts would be wasted if the hero starts spreading the religion, and they start planning to capture Yusuke. But Yuka suddenly arrives and offers to help them out by showing them where he sleeps. They don't trust her completely, so Kamilto asks two of his men to stay back and guard the carriage while he and one other soldier follow her. As they walk through the mountains, Kamilto gives his man a signal, so he stabs Yuka, but her spirit firm is pleased because she's drawn them far enough. After scanning the area, the man informs Kamilto that he didn't find anything, so they tied her up as they make their way back. However, when they return, they see Yusuke aura farming like a horror villain while destroying their men and their property. The Diok soldiers try to attack them, but Yusuke and Yuka evade them and run off. Soon, they meet with the prisoners they freed in a cave, and Yuka asks Yusuke if it was worth it to slay people for their mission, and he coldly replies that they can't afford to worry about the lives of characters in a game. Meanwhile, Kamilto is drowning in misery as his plans have gone down the toilet, and his guard tries to cheer him up by bringing up the fact that they managed to find their wagon, but he starts whining about how he'd never get to feast on the king's royal glizzy. As the guard sends a messenger pigeon away, Kamilto wonders how the king will punish them after they report this miserable failure to him, and he starts planning to commit seppuku with his guard. However, Cavell suddenly appears and brutally destroys his guard before announcing that she'll be the one punishing him instead of the king. Kamilto starts freaking out as he realizes that everything Yusuke told him during their past meeting was a lie, but Cavell stares at him like a puma about to pounce on her prey while asking him to pick up his sword. After picking up his axe, he charges in to attack her, but she first crushes his spirit by revealing that all of the Arteros supporters are still alive before brutally slashing off his arms. As he screams in pain on the ground, she pulls out an even larger sword and asks if he has any last words. With tears streaming down his face, Kamilto claims that he wanted world peace, but the Cavell immediately slashes his head off Demon Slayer style before coldly stating that they can never achieve peace until they've eradicated every single one of the Diok scumbags. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Diok, a guard reports to the king that Kamilto's group has failed their mission, and he sees them as fools for not coming straight home. When the guard asks if he should send a rescue team, the king says there's no need because it's only 2 survivors, but the guard claims that the real problem is that the heroes have become their enemies. The king asks if it's necessary to fight the heroes, and he says it is and advises the king to prepare for the worst case scenario, so the king orders him to start researching ways to destroy the heroes. The next morning, Yusuke explains to the rest of his team that he can't tell if the mission was a success because he doesn't know what's in the letter that Kamilto's man sent, and Yuka says it's no big deal because they managed to rescue the captives. He then explains that there are 3 things he wants to try when it comes to of the goods, and they notice that Time hasn't moved for quite a while. Elsewhere, Shindo and Kusu ask a merchant if he has any goods headed for Radodorbo, but he says he doesn't, so they thank him and head back to their own carriage, where John reveals that he didn't see anything that looked like a shop after looking around. Shindo points out that the joke would be on them if they keep going to Radodorbo with no goods, but Kusu says there's a way and asks John if she can find out something from him. Meanwhile, Yusuke packs some loads on the carriage and explains to Yuka that they may be the goods they need, but she complains that she doesn't want to be in the same wagon as them because they will set a bad example for the young ones aboard. As they ride ahead, the girls watch as Yusuke tells the young prisoner some stories, and Kavel signs when she sees this, causing Yuke to think that she actually has feelings for Yusuke. A short while later, they stop at a particular spot, and Yusuke explains that they have to take breaks more often since they're carrying 2 people now. Kavel approaches him to shoot her shot with her cheeks glowing red like tomatoes, but when the prisoner boy arrives, she retreats. As Yusuke approaches her, she brings up the fact that their journey will end the next day and walks ahead with a sad expression on her face, and Yuka starts geeking out from her hiding spot like a typical rom-com fan. When they resume their journey, Yuka remembers a similar romance event in the video game she loves to play and starts tweaking like a moron on her horse, and this makes the prisoner boy concerned that she's running mad, so Yusuke explains that it's typical gamer behavior. He then says he can't wait to go home so he can continue his video games, and Kavel stares at him suspiciously after hearing this. When they arrive at their next resting point, Yuka asks Yusuke to switch seats with her because her cake is starting to hurt after sitting on the horse for so long. However, when they resume their journey, she reveals that it's part of her video game style matchmaking technique to give Yusuke and Kavel some alone time to say goodbye to each other and crack each other. But when she turns, she sees the 2 airheads sleeping. Later on, they stop at another rest point, and as Yusuke prepares to cook up a meal, the pea-brained love doctor starts plans to make them fall in love while doing a shared task together, but all her telenovela hopes go down the drain when Gorilla Girl arrives with a humongous boar for dinner. As Yusuke tells the refugees about Naruto, Yuka approaches Kavel and announces that the best way forward is for her to go full psycho lover mode. For this plan, she sets them up to do training together, and as they clash weapons, she starts celebrating the fact that she's used the most controversial method of her love game, and she hopes that Kavel will carve him up lovingly. Kavel herself is excited because she's feeling the kind of love that can only be expressed through combat, but she suddenly asks Yuka to replace Yusuke as her opponent, and the 4-eyed idiot starts running away. As they continue their journey, Yuka starts crashing out because the 2 fools she's trying to bring together are dumber than rocks, and everyone watching her from behind gets worried. Meanwhile, Time arrives at a spot where a merchant is passing by, and he tells them that he has goods to transport to Radodorbo, so they offer to escort him. However, his guard thinks they're trying to steal his thunder, so he attacks them with his sword, but Shindo easily knocks off his blade. That night, Team B is camping in the woods, and as Yuka rests, Kavel meets with Yusuke privately and thanks him for helping her get revenge on Bimsburg. Yusuke says it's no problem because he was also infuriated at them, but Yuka gets mad because the romance subplot she created in her goofy head didn't have the payoff she wanted. The next morning, Team A suddenly gets notified that the quest has been cleared, and this is because Yusuke and his team have successfully delivered the severed heads they were carrying to the kingdom. Afterwards, the 2 teams finally reunite, but they immediately suggest splitting up again to cover up for all the mess they made. The next day, the girls walk by different paths, and as Yusuke monitors them through the screen, he's pleased by the progress they've made. Apparently, the game master gave them 2 quests in the 4th stage. The first was to deliver goods to Radodorbo, which they cleared by delivering the heads of Diok soldiers to the officials. The second quest was to traverse 5% of the map, and they decided to split up so they could cover ground separately. Yusuke is happy because at that pace they'd be able to finish the quest with enough time to spare, but he's shocked when he notices that it's suddenly snowing. As the snow gets more intense, John and Kavel chill at a bar, and he suggests postponing their departure for a few days because the locals predict that the snow will become a nasty blizzard that night, and she agrees. He feels worried for the heroes because he heard that the weather particularly gets rough in the mountains, and Kavel is concerned as well, as she remembers meeting him just before they began their journey. Back then, he informed her that the heroes had to separate from her since they had a new quest and shook her hand while thanking her for everything. As he ran away, Kavel thanked him while calling him a solitary hero. John snaps her out of her flashback arc by asking if something is wrong, but she says nothing is wrong before telling him that they have to postpone their departure as a way of giving them time to rest before continuing their trip. After John leaves, she reminisces about the battles she fought with the heroes, particularly the gargoyle battle, and feels grateful about the fact that she didn't die and can now continue her journey until she becomes the next Captain Marvel. When she remembers the kiss, her loins start tingling again, and she wishes that the hero would be safe in his adventures. Meanwhile, Yusuke is hiding behind a large rock from the snow, searching through his inventory for something comfy to wear, and he ends up picking the Beast Magician outfit, which makes him thankful that he switched jobs. As he walks forward through the snow, he feels annoyed because he expected the quest to be a simple stroll and never thought he'd be fighting for his life against snow like he's in Canada. The day gets even darker, and the temperature drops further, so he stops and starts wondering if he'll be revived if he dies from the cold. However, However, he remembers that the girls couldn't respawn when the beast ate them, and this makes him realize that they can't revive if their remains are not in an environment where they could survive. If he freezes to death and his body temperature is just as low after reviving, he'd be cooked, so he decides to do some leg workouts to boost his temperature. Elsewhere, Yuka is moving through the snow, fantasizing about a prince saving her and then cuddling with her afterwards. But as she crashes out, the snow gets even more intense. She feels that the other heroes are resting due to the snow, but when she checks the group screen, she sees that she's the only one slacking off. As she starts coughing, she realizes that she'd die if she stops moving, so she fights through the cold while walking forward. In another part of the kingdom, Kyusoo is walking through the snow while using her shield as an umbrella, and even though the experience is tough for her, she keeps pushing forward. She remembers when she first entered that game world, and the game master spun the wheel, which awarded her the warrior position. Back then, Shindo was so happy about the fact that she finally had a companion, and she promised to do whatever she could to back her up, so Kyusoo pledged to do the same. Following this, they encountered so many scary battles, but her healthy body allowed her to be as active as everyone else. After they managed to defeat a goblin, she apologized to Shindo for being useless, but Shindo hugged her and cried while saying that she's happy to have one of her friends in the video game world. Kyusoo hugged her back and felt happy that she could be of help to someone. Over the course of her journey with the hero party, she's felt grateful that she's been useful to others the way she wasn't before, so even in the midst of a powerful snowstorm, she refuses to give up. Elsewhere, Shindo is barely keeping it together as she walks through the snow, and she feels that the quest is too hard, even though it's the 4th stage. When she notices how quiet the area is, she realizes that she hasn't been alone in the game world for a long time. She remembers the pain she felt when she suddenly got Isekai'd and taken away from her friends, and she also recalled how she begged Yusuke to save her, causing her to blush. After remembering how she defeated the gargoyle, she charges ahead, claiming she wouldn't let herself die, but she suddenly runs into a large rock. Meanwhile, Kyusoo's legs start giving out, and after seeing that the team is making progress in the mission, she tries to move ahead but ends up collapsing. As Shindo inspects the rock, she sees that it's a large face, which makes her scream in shock. At the same time, Yusuke notices that the girls aren't making any progress anymore, and he decides to move ahead to find a shelter so that he won't freeze to death. Suddenly, a gigantic monster attacks, so he summons a knife and slashes it. After blocking its next attack with a frying pan, he scans through its body using his X-ray vision and destroys it. The offspring of the monster arrive and start mourning their mom, but Yusuke doesn't care because he knows that they're virtual. As he moves ahead, he decides that he won't let the girls die since they're stronger than him, but he suddenly falls into a large hole and dies. Meanwhile, 2 magical girls are fighting against a dark lord, and he blasts some dark lightning at them, but they evade the attack. He then appears in his true form and tells the pink magical girl that there is no hope for her, but she argues that he's capping, so he blasts her with a dark Rasengan. She manages to survive the attack but then sees that her comrade, Purple, has been taken hostage in a magical orb along with her 2 Pokemon, and the Dark Lord, Demon King Lucifer, declares that he'll rule the world with darkness and suck up the dreams of people around the world. As he does his evil laugh, Pink gets up and declares that she won't let him have his way because her team, the Majiha sisters, never give up. Her body starts glowing with a pink aura, and Purple boosts her power by adding her aura as well, causing Pink to transform into a majestic Lower Moon form. After her boring superhero monologue, she annihilates Lucaifo with a powerful flame blast. When Yuka was younger, the Majiha sisters were her role models, and she believed that she'd be able to save the world if she had the power of friendship that they always displayed during their fights. Back in real time, Yuka is hiding from the snow in a self-made igloo, and she tries to cast her own magical girl flame spell, but it flops, so she concludes that she'll never be a magical girl. She remembers how she always protected herself by hanging out with people who were stronger and then talking trash about them behind their backs. Even though they all did the same to her, she didn't have the right to complain, and she felt that she had to read the room to get by. As she starts to give up on her magical girl dreams, her wand starts fading away. Meanwhile, Yusuke wakes up in a strange room, and he's surprised that he revived after taking such a nasty fall. While looking around, he realizes that the reason he survived is that the room he's currently in maintains his body heat, allowing him to revive. He then notices some paths ahead with glowing walls and realizes that he's in a secret dungeon, which makes him excited. As Yusuke explores the dungeon, he sees animal corpses on the floor, but he ignores them as he realizes that he can clear the quest on his own by simply walking around the dungeon. Suddenly, he gets a notification that one of his party members has died. In the snowy plains, Kyusoo's spirit body is in tears, begging her body not to die there, and Shindo gets notified that she's been unalived. This makes her so angry that she declares that she'll complete the quest, even if it's the last thing she does. As she moves ahead, she realizes that the wind has calmed down a lot, and she sees a village ahead, which makes her happy. As Shindo approaches the village, she feels happy that she'll be able to save Kyusoo, but she has no idea that the path she's walking on is thin ice. She runs ahead, but the ice cracks, causing her to fall into the cold water beneath. Yusuke immediately gets notified that Shindo is dead, and this shocks him because he thought she'd survive after seeing that she was making great progress. As if things weren't already bad enough, he runs into a dead dead end and decides to head back to find another route, but he sees that every other path is closed down as well. He then crawls through a hole to find a hidden escape path, but runs into yet another dead end, and the room starts vibrating. Suddenly, a large worm comes out from the ground, and he thinks it's about to eat him, but it simply passes through the ground and leaves some natural chocolate as a souvenir for him. He realizes that the worm acts just like an earthworm in the real world, and it's exploring a path he hasn't followed before, so he follows it ahead. However, he notices that the worm is moving too slowly, so he pokes it in the cake hole, causing it to move faster. As he starts celebrating, a monstrous worm suddenly appears behind him and attacks. Meanwhile, Yuka is finally moving again, but she's stressed by the fact that only she and Yusuke are the ones alive, and her blood pressure skyrockets when she gets a notification that Yusuke is dead. She drops to the ground and starts trembling in fear, but she suddenly feels relieved because she finally has a reason to give up, and no one will complain because she wasn't the one who died first. Suddenly, her mind drifts away to Delulu Land, where Majiha Purple appears and gives her a pep talk by reminding her of how Magical Pink always persevered when things got rough, and this motivates her to get back up. With tears streaming down her face, she finally activates the magical fire spell, which heats her entire body. While moving ahead, the four-eyed web starts fantasizing about all her favorite anime characters motivating her, and just when she's about to collapse, a girl appears, riding a large cat, and offers her a ride. As they ride ahead, the girl asks Yuoka where she wants to go, but she starts freaking out over the fact that she may not make it to her destination. So the girl uses her magical wind powers to make them fly. This shocks Yuoka, and she asks the girl if she's a player, but she replies that she's simply a magic user. After minutes of flying, Yuka finally completes the quest, and the entire team appears in the Dark Dimension, where the Game Master appears and congratulates them for passing. He then grants her permission to ask a question as her reward, so Yuka asks if the game world is actually like virtual reality, and the Game Master explains that it's a parallel world. After explaining the whole concept of parallel worlds to them, he points out that he's capable of observing and traveling between parallel worlds and reveals that the game world isn't a virtual reality, but rather they, the heroes, are the ones virtual in that world. This makes sense to the girls, especially since they can revive after dying, but Yusuke is frozen in shock as he realizes that he unalived real people during their adventure. Sometime later, they've returned to the normal world, and Yusuke is still traumatized by the fact that he murdered actual people. As he struggles in his room, he realizes that even though he deeply hates humans, his heart is pounding uncontrollably after slaying one. In his mind, he's falling through the air into the game world, and he accepts that there's no turning back now, so he starts laughing like a madman. The next day in school, Yusuke suddenly moves like LeBron James on the basketball court and dribbles past all of his classmates before dunking the ball into the net. Seeing this, his classmates are surprised, as they wonder how the bland loser is suddenly good at sports. In the girls' court, Kyusu fails to catch the volleyball, but Shindo picks up the ball and hands it to her, causing her to smile. Shindo says it's amazing that she doesn't have to just watch anymore, and Kyusu admits that she's gained a little more stamina than before, so Shindo points out that she also feels lighter. Kyusu guesses that it's due to all the leveling up they did in the game world, since she hasn't completely healed from her illness, and she still gets worn out after running. As they stare at Yusuke, Kyusu asks if he knows about statuses, but Shindo says she isn't sure because she hasn't talked to him since their last day in the game world and can't bring herself to. Back then, after the Game Master blew their minds with all the reveals, Yusuke started acting depressed, so Yuka explained to the others that he had murdered someone during their rescue of the Arteros believers. Back in real time, Yusuke's teammates ask him to pass the ball, but he ignores them and flops the shot, making them question why he's suddenly acting like a Blue Lock character. After school, Yusuke walks home, and he comforts himself with the fact that he's the only one who murdered someone in the game world. He suddenly gets a text from the Game Master about a mission, and even though he's annoyed, he realizes that he can't escape it anymore, so he opens the mail. The text asks him how he feels after murdering someone, so he just deletes it and heads back to his room, where he starts to wonder if the Game Master orchestrated things to make him unalive someone. As he remembers how he slayed the Diak soldier, he realizes that it was his own choice because he thought they were virtual. But suddenly, a girl appears in his room and asks him why he's not replying to his mail. This makes him realize that she's the Game Master, so he starts crashing out while asking her why he's cross-dressing as a lolly. After he's calmed down, he explains to the Game Master that the reason he slayed the Diak soldier is because of all the evil things they did to the team, but he still feels that it's wrong because the men strongly believed that what they were doing was right. When the Game Master asks him to answer his question, Yusuke says murdering the man felt like a mistake because he'd have never done it if he knew the truth. Since he's gotten that out of his chest, the Game Master informs him that he has to meet someone who will become the next player. When he asks the Game Master why he was sent to hit on Yuka, the Game Master says he has no right to ask a question and offers him a hat while inviting him to come along. Hours later, they're sitting in a Chinese restaurant where they're served some of Kung Fu Panda's favorites, and the Game Master explains to Yusuke that the man sitting at the edge of the corner is a former drug dealer, and in 20 seconds, the new player is to enter the restaurant and murder him for his crimes. As Yusuke starts panicking, the Game Master reveals that the player's name is Keita, and his brother, Shuji, is also involved in the plot. Suddenly, some masked men arrive and charge in at the drug dealer with metal bats, so Yusuke Keita trips the leader to the ground. The leader retaliates by hitting him in the leg, but Yusuke steals the bat and proceeds to beat the stuffing out of the discount Peaky Blinders. After careful observation, Yusuke finds Keita among the gangsters and pulls off his mask before advising him to run away with his brother before the police arrive. However, Keita tries to charge in to unalive the man, so Yusuke holds him back and tells him that he won't let him murder the man. When the crime lord calls his crew to ask what's going on, one of the losers informs him that their gang is getting slimed out by a high schooler. As Yusuke struggles with Keita, the gang lord suddenly enters the room and asks him if he's working for a rival gang. After he confirms that he isn't, the gang boss pulls a gun on him, and the game master offers him a special glove, which he uses to activate his monster magic and take out the wannabe Heisenberg. As the cops arrive, Yusuke tells Keita to escape with his brother, but Kira notices that the gang lord is about to fire at him, so he knocks the gun away and stomps him like a cockroach. Soon after, the game master asks Yusuke what it feels like now that he's stopped a murder, so he explains that he did what he needed to because he'd have failed the quest if he let it happen. He then brings up how the game master told him that his success in recruiting Yuko would determine their success in the next quest, and just like he said, she was the one who completed it for them. This time, Yusuke created a world where Keita would want to return to because he and his brother were arrested, and he feels that it will boost his chances in the next quest. When the game master asks about his view on life, he says that all humans who trick others deserve to die. Hearing this, the game master says he's talking like an anonymous video game user who thinks he's better than everyone, and asks who he thinks he is. Yusuke claims that he's just a dumb boy with delusions of grandeur, and he admits that what he said is wrong, but he feels that the rest of the world is wrong while he's right. After remembering his journey in the game world, he declares that he will always fight for the justice that he believes in. That brings us to the end of the video. Will Yusuke and his party clear the game master's remaining quests? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more anime recaps like these, subscribe to the channel and watch this video on screen.